Ask yourselves this question. Would you purchase a building you knew to be haunted? Hey there, dissectors. Today we're delving into a ghost story that takes place at the Hockey Hall of Fame in Canada. Over the years, many paranormal activities have taken place here, and whereas most places can only surmise the identity of the spirit, at the Hall of Fame, it's pretty much a certainty who the ghostly woman is. Originally opening in 1943 in Kingston, Ontario, now it resides in an historical building that was once a bank in Brookfield Place, downtown Toronto. Were the owners of the Hall of Fame crazy or just brave to move into this building, one that has had a spirit haunting it since the 1950s? You decide as we explore the spirit's backstory and possible reasons for her suicide. If you read the newspapers at the time of the incident, you would have known very little about her. The Toronto Telegram released an article which just plainly described her as an attractive young brunette who was despondent over a love affair. There was no identity given to the young woman, like name or age, something to give her a face, you might say. Worse yet, the Telegram didn't even follow up with the story, unlike the Toronto Daily Star, as the Star newspaper was called back then. They ran a 3-paragraph piece on page 14 that announced her death and again stated her suicide as almost whimsical, explaining she ended her life due to loneliness as her boyfriend was leaving to take a job on the boats. But again, no one mentioned the poor woman's name until a death notice was posted on March 13th, 1953 in the Star. Without the notice, she'd have remained nameless forevermore, further adding to the intrigue of her spirit haunting the Hockey Hall of Fame. In life, Dorothea was described as looking very much like the movie actress of the era, Rita Hayworth. She was said to be charming, attractive and popular with her colleagues, but life had not been an easy path for this young lady. You see, by the time she was aged 9, both her parents were dead, and she spent the remainder of her childhood alone. Maybe this made her crave affection and love, a place to fit in, but often this mindset can lead us down a dark path, one where we put ourselves in harm's way, and I don't mean physically in this case, but emotionally. Just after 9 a.m. on March 11th, 1953, Dorothea May Elliott, aged just 19, walked upstairs to the second-floor ladies' washroom of the bank and shot herself. Doreen Bracken is believed to have been the last person to see Dorothea alive. She said, "I came in about 8 a.m. and she was already there." Bracken noticed at the time that Dorothea looked upset and dishevelled, like maybe she'd not been home. Then, just after 9 a.m, another member of staff called Zita Rushbrook started to scream and yelled for help over the second-floor balcony. It was here that Len Redwood, the bank's messenger, raced upstairs to see what the problem was and discovered Dorothea lying on the ground. Redwood was interviewed in 1982 about the poor young woman, and he said she was the life of the party, the most popular girl in the bank. He claimed that she shot herself in the women's second-floor washroom with the bank's .38 caliber revolver, which had been kept in his desk drawer, probably in case of robberies or other troublemakers. Many years later, Redwood's son named Vic also had this to say. "My father told me that he and an ambulance attendant carried Dorothy downstairs, likely still alive, in a wooden Windsor-style chair. That chair was at my parents' cottage as late as 1990. Now, I'm not sure how you feel about that, but I can honestly say I wouldn't feel comfortable with a chair with that kind of history attached to it in my house. I know it can't do me any harm, but it just kind of feels yucky. But each to their own. Would you want the chair in your house? Now, Dorothea fought to stay alive, but after 22 hours, she succumbed to her injuries on March 12th at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto. But her death raised many questions. Most importantly, why did she end her life? Also worth noting is that everyone at the bank said the same thing about her suicide. No one heard the gunshot. Strange? Absolutely, as surely it would have echoed around the building, and to this day, it's never been truly understood. Well, as you can imagine, with so little told in the newspapers about the lady, the rumours circulated fast. Reasons varied from her stealing money and being found out. Others claimed that she'd been secretly helping the Irish Republican Army, also known as the IRA, to rob the bank to help fund their cause back home. And as the rumours went on, a psychic several years ago claimed that young Dorothea was murdered as she had uncovered an illegal plot to embezzle money belonging to farmers. The scheme was said to be run by the bank manager, chief of police, and a leading judge. Now that would be a scary crew to go up against, but the story that tends to be more believable is that our young spirit was having an affair with another bank employee, possibly the manager, who was married. Over the years, Dorothea has made herself known many times. People have witnessed lights flickering, doors and windows opening and slamming shut, the distant sound of screaming, as well as individuals complaining of being touched on their shoulder or legs. A harp player named Joanna Jordan had a traumatic experience when she witnessed the female spirit. You see, as she was performing one evening at the property, she looked up to see Dorothea glaring down at her from the ceiling of the second floor. Joanna later said, "I remember it so vividly because it's one of those things you'll never forget." After this experience, Joanna refused to set foot on the second floor again if alone, claiming it was just too spooky up there. Another traumatised guest who witnessed Dorothea was a young boy who visited one summer. The hall's coordinator, called Jane Rodney, said, "The boy started screaming, 'Don't you see her? Don't you see her?' He claimed a woman with long black hair was coming in and out of the walls." Can you imagine witnessing something so bizarre at such a young age? It would certainly make you question things very early on. Rob Hines, who was a special events supervisor, had his own experience too. One morning at around 6 a.m, Hines was on the second floor looking for coffee urns that were needed for an event later that morning. Suddenly, an overwhelming feeling came over him, as though he knew he was being watched from the shadows. This feeling made him want to enter the conference room, which was in total blackness, when something strange happened. Hines said, "One of the chairs, and this is the God's honest truth, was turning. As if a breeze was in there, it actually moved right into my hand. I'm rather sceptical about ghosts, but I just freaked out and ran out of there." And I can't say I blame him, as that would horrify many of us, especially if we've not had our first coffee of the day. I mean, patience with the living is minimal, but at that point, with the dead, non-existent. So what do you think of this haunted location, my friends? I think that whatever the reason for Dorothea deciding to end her life, it must have been something that was deeply troubling her. You see, many might believe she was just a young girl who was prone to dramatics, maybe expecting to be saved in time. But she was described as appearing unkept and distressed, which shows something really was troubling her. Staff and employees even now hear footsteps approaching them when they're working alone at night, as well as the sound of moans and other eerie noises echoing through the old structure. So on that creepy note, until next time, my friends, stay safe out there.